this has been a work which has taken quite a lot of time. But I know exactly how it started, but maybe you'd like to tell anyone who doesn't know how it started.
Yes, in true Gabriel fashion, I like to say it takes a long time to get our art out there. But,
I don't know what you mean.
yeah, it started, well, it actually started as a album insert artwork for covers album that Dad did, Scratch My Back, I'll Scratch Yours. And we were trying to figure out a way to represent the artists that he covered. And so we thought, well, what about using like a form of ID? And we thought, well, the eyes and the thumbprints are a form of all of our ID. And so the first 11 or so people that I did for the album were sort of the eye and the thumb. And as I was shooting them, I thought, actually the eye is really interesting, and we should continue this with more people. So we kind of carried on from there. But
Although Paul Simon's thumb still made it.
yes, that's true.
Yeah. So the big question is left eye or right eye?
Yeah, and weirdly, like most people wanted to do their, I think it's the right eye, except for Laurie Anderson, I found was interesting, wanted the other one, which, and she's got a song, My Left Eye.
Oh, is that right?
I think so, yeah, which was kind of, just happened to be a little ironic there, but yeah, no, it was, I mean, I think it was also partly me gravitating, partly them turning to one side that naturally happened, that everyone has maybe a better side, better right side.
And you took everyone except one?
Yes, I did all the photos except for Lou Reed, who it was really a scheduling conflict at the time because he was part of the covers album, so there was a limited time to do those photographs. And so he said, "Oh well, don't worry, I'll do it myself." And he's was an avid photographer and really enjoyed photography, and took this interesting photo that was very blurry and abstract, and sent it over. And I thought, oh dear, this is way too abstract, and it's very different to everything. And then I really grew to love it. It was sort of had a very spiritual aspect about it, and you can only just make out the eye as a shadow and the light in the shadow, and so I included it because I thought it was a special one, a self-portrait.
Laurie actually wrote a lovely little piece about it, which is in the book. Because he was very good, I believe. He used to sort of take apart cameras, and he loved the technology. So that was a nice memory. But tell me about where these photos were taken. Mainly, how did they decide? Did you decide?
They decided. I wanted to try and make the photograph as easy as possible for the subject matter to take. So I would make it just me, camera, no lighting, using natural daylight, and so there was very little setup. It was I'd sort of come to, and because it was a macro shot of the eye, they didn't have to prepare. So there was no which I think actually helped with the intimacy factor of the photographs, because there was no hair, makeup, set up, time to do it. It was right in there and get the shot, which kind of, I think you get a bit more intimate with the person, with the subject. But I did it many different places, just trying to grab them in 15 minutes, which was backstage at shows, in hotel rooms, at people's houses, offices. So it was sort of all over the place, which was interesting because you really kind of had to do it on the fly, a lot of it. But I went in often with an idea of sort of what I thought of the person and what I wanted to get, a vague idea, and then walk in the door and sort of throw out all the ideas and go with the moment.
I'm curious because obviously with most of us entertainers, we're used to trying to control our image, although we often fail. But how many people were happy to sort of let you control the image and trust you? Was that an issue?
No, I would say all of them were actually really open to that. I think because again, they didn't really have time to even think about it, because it was straight in and right up against their face. So it's a bit, just the dynamic of having the camera right on your face is an interesting dynamic between me and them. It kind of puts you immediately in an awkward, or the subject matter in an awkward position, or feeling, you know, some people were very easy with that and relaxed completely, and other people were a bit more, this makes me feel, you know, awkward and strange. So it was, yeah, it was an interesting reaction to that
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, but anyway, when you had the different people, right, and you had different situations, were they coming up with ideas? Were you coming up, say, Mick Fleetwood, for instance, and
Mick, that one I came
that's
up
your
with.
idea.
Yeah, I sort of wanted to, because he's a drummer and he often wears the wristbands. I wanted to put that to be part of it, and have him look through it. So I directed him quite a bit in that one. But someone like David Byrne, for example, who played the second I walked in with his eye, was doing all sorts of crazy things. Now this is perfect, this is very him, and he ended up pulling his eyelid all over the place, and so that's what happened there. But it was very good for him. So.
No one was injured in the process. And I know you said that trying to grab Johnny Depp was one of the most difficult ones. Why was that?
It was difficult. It was backstage at one of the Hollywood vampire shows, so it was chaos. It's a sort of very backstage madness, where it was before the show, so people were trying to get ready. There was a lot of people trying to speak to him and reach him, and I sort of sat around waiting in the dressing room, and also was thinking, how am I going to shoot this one, because there was no natural daylight backstage, so it was trying to find a light that would work with the macro lens. So I ended up going in his dressing room bathroom, which was the lightest spot backstage, which was a horrible fluorescent light, but it ended up being fine for the photo and worked. And
Where did the glasses come from?
the glasses I actually picked out before. I had a few things that I was like wanting to play with a bit, and I picked them out in a store in East Village, and one of the lenses was missing, and it sort of felt like him, and I thought, oh, well, I'll do some with and some without, and I asked him to wear them, and he was like, it's very strange you asked me this, because the one with the lens missing is the eye that he actually has some trouble seeing out of. So it sort of made a lot of sense for him, and so I kept the ones with the glasses.
Yeah, I like that one. So do you have a favorite?
I love the Nadia from Pussy Riot. She's on the inside page, but
Yeah.
I think that just
Right at the front.
yeah. But just I shot her on the street in LA, and you know, she obviously wanted to use the masks that they're known for, and she cut the whole. She actually didn't have one on her, so we went and bought a woolly hen, and she cut a hole in it and made the mask, and it just sort of worked perfectly. And I like just the way it's framed and the way her eye pops through that mask, the balaclava.
And I know you had to have 2 goes for one.
Yeah, 2 goes for you. Well, the
Why was
first
that?
time round, I thought, and we shot, it was, obviously Dad was one of the first people I shot, and I hadn't kind of come up, fully developed the idea, and we were just playing around at the house, and we went outside, and the image that I had was very dark. I mean, not as in the light, but as in the feeling about it felt very dark and almost angry, and it was sort of the opposite to how I feel
Sweet
now.
natured angel. But your dad is.
So I ended up wanting to do it again, and I think the second time around it felt a lot more real as to who we were. So
I like it a lot.
good.
And what would you say is the principal difference in this book to other portraits?
Well, I think you know, when you're cutting down something to just someone's eyes, you're really sort of getting much more intimate. And I think, especially with faces that you've seen a lot in the media, and you know them well, it's a different way to kind of look at the person and maybe get a different view of who they are. And you know, you can gain so much for the eyes. I keep saying that obviously all of us the last few years have been walking around like this, and you still realize how much you can communicate through the eyes without the mouth, without the nose, and you know, I think it's a really special thing. So it's a new, you know, kind of a different, interesting way to look at these people, I think.
And do you think this project was tougher than you imagined, or? pretty much what you expected?
I think what I expected, the hardest part was just scheduling time with people, I think. With people all over the place and trying to, traveling around and doing albums and tours and all that. That's what took the most time, I think. But the actual shoots, and I think the more I went along, the more, obviously the more you get into the groove of what you're doing. So no, it didn't feel, and I think just the idea that it's was just me and a camera, no setup, made it very simple. It really allowed me to kind of play more with the actual shooting than trying to figure out a much bigger picture.
Do you think you'd like to do more, or is it going to be toes or ears next time?
I've been asked to do a few hands and bits and bobs, but there's nothing
I don't
quite
think you should mention
yeah. But the eyes.
She's my daughter.
But I got to a point where I was like, oh, I should get so and so. I'd really love to get this person, and I thought, you know what? I've got 54. It's like 55 coming now. What it is, but I was like, I can stop now. It's got to finish. So it just got to that point where I said, no, that's done. Enough for a book, and let's move on.
And why did you want to turn them into pack of cards?
Yes, I've also decided to make playing cards just because I really wanted to have ID cards. So I actually have a version which is a playing card deck with all the photographs, and it's a perfect number for the two. So
Who is the Joker?
yeah, well, I made Richard Branson and David Byrne the Jokers.
Great.
So yeah.
Well, I think I'm running out of questions here, but maybe some people would have, who've seen it, might have some specific questions about some of the different photos. You want, okay. Yeah. So they do that.
Thank you. I was wondering, as I was looking at all the photos, you would think they'd be more vain. Like, I looked at Debbie Harry. Usually her eyes are done up, like, gorgeous, and she has minimal makeup on. Was that her choice? And even when I'm looking up here, I see, like, little red lines in the eyes, like no one had vanity.
No, it was actually amazing. I thought a lot of people, and I asked everyone, in terms of retouching the photograph and whether, they felt comfortable, if they wanted to, like, look a little nicer. And I did very minimal retouching on them, and everyone was very comfortable with it. So it was surprising to me. Actually, I was very happy though, because I think obviously you can get a lot more real stuff out of it without the touch-ups.
Somebody over there?
Right here? Okay. That's right.
Okay.
So I was wondering if you did any pre-studying with your subjects beforehand, just to what my ideas in terms of their facial structure or anything like that, or was it all just a spur of the moment?
No, it was all spur of the moment. As I say, I would look at, kind of think about what I felt about the person or knew about the person. Some of the people I knew well, some of them I had never met before, and come up with a vague sort of framing idea that I wanted to do. And then when I went in, I sort of had that in my mind, but kind of went with the situation and went with the moment.
Oh, I can talk. Yeah.
Sure.
See any damaged eyes, freckled, like I have freckled eyes, like anything unusual that you saw as you were doing the project?
Interesting. I don't think so. I think, yeah, not that I can remember anything stuck out.
Would you like to take a photo of my freckled eyes?
Yeah, I need some more interesting eyes anyway.
Hello, so as I was taking it all in, because there's a lot happening here today, a photo, and I'll leave sorry for a split second before the screen change was of Shane McGowan,
Yes.
and I just saw so much life in his eyelid and his eye, and there's like a illuminated tiny circle reflecting like out of his pupil. I was just curious about that photo shoot, how he was.
Yeah, that was a very interesting one, because I went with my husband to Dublin to shoot him, and it was Christmas Eve, I think, when we went over to his house, and his birthday's Christmas Day, and so it was all there. And he wasn't so well at the time, but he was sitting, so he was in his armchair at home, and he, you know, he was, they were completely, like him and his wife were relaxed in Christmas vibe, watching Christmas TV and having a drink and chocolates and all that. And so we sat there and chatted, and they, you know, I think I find in Ireland they just chat and tell stories for a long time. And so, and I was thinking when I was sitting there, am I ever going to get this shot done? But it was, I mean, it was a great time, and I finally was like, oh, you know, maybe we should do the shot quickly, and grabbed it in sort of, you know, like 5-10 minutes, because it was like so perfect. The light was a light in his living room that was reflected in his eye, but he was great. He was, you know, it was really lovely feeling, because he was, you know, it was Christmas time and he was at home and relaxing with the family. So it was, I feel like I captured that moment in that photograph too.
I got to see it.
Yeah, thank you.
Over here.
Hi there. Was there anybody that you wanted to include that didn't end up making it into the book?
There were quite a few that I'd love to have included. A couple off the top of my head. I would love to go at Tina Turner. It's one of them. And I actually wanted to get Martin Scorsese, because his eyebrows and his eyes are pretty amazing. But that, you know, timing wasn't right for that. But I mean, I could go on though. There's a lot of people I'd love to get.
First of all, it's really an honor to have you here. Thank you, and it's really delightful to be exposed to your daughter's creative energy for the first time for me. And I'm wondering if you can talk about what it's like to be a creative who is the child of a creative and finding your own place and purpose. I'm very interested by that.
Yeah, well, I think what I love is that Dad and I actually have very similar taste, I think, in art and creating things. And I think one of the things I love to do is sort of brainstorm with him, because it's a lot of fun having this sort of same taste in something and coming up with ideas. So I think a lot of my creative sense definitely comes from him. And my sister also. My mom is also a similar taste as well. We all kind of have a very similar creative process, and you know, so it's, I think, you know, being his daughter it's one of those things that's always very, you know, helpful to get through the front door, as it were, but then you kind of have to stand on your own 2 feet once you're there. So it's both good and bad, I think.
Yeah, I think there are as many disadvantages as there are. As many disadvantages as there are advantages.
One more question? Last one? There's so many. Right here.
Thank you. I was just wondering, so as I'm looking through this book, certain photos evoke certain emotions, and I know I read in some interviews that you weren't specifically looking for any emotions, you just wanted to capture what you captured. Was there any photos that stood out to you in terms of the emotion that you did capture?
That's a good question. I have to kind of run through it in my mind now. I think one that, there were two actually that pop into mind, the Susan Sarandon and Kevin Bacon, and because they were both looking out the window at the time, and really, Susan was interesting because she was actually very interested in the project, and we constantly were chatting about the idea of eyes and what they represent, and we were sort of deep in conversation. But the moment that I captured, she was sort of looking out of the window, and the same with Kevin Bacon. They were sort of almost lost in thought, and there was something very peaceful with both of them. There was a very still moment that I really liked. You know, with most of the people, I got sort of several different, you know, moments within when I was shooting, as I was shooting, and I chose the ones that sort of felt the strongest to me. So as you go, if you went through with one post, if you went through several photos, I think there were different emotional moments, I think, with them, and I just picked the one I felt was the strongest.
Okay, we can end it there.
Great, yes, thank you all.